Sir Francis Drake, an FBI shootout, and the great outdoors are all on this day. Welcome back to On This Day. Today's date is June 17th, 2022. It is the 168th day of the year. You got 197 days left in 2022. Today is the 24th Friday in the 25th week and the 90th day of spring. Today is World Croc Day. Everybody loves those sandals, and so we decided to give it a holiday. Totally kidding. This is the animal, not the footwear. Every year on June 17th, World Croc Day highlights the plight of endangered crocodiles. The day also encourages us to learn more about this amazing reptile. Crocodiles are often confused with alligators. There are some differences between the two. The primary difference is the shape of the snout. The crocodile's snout is more like a V-shaped, kind of pointed, where the alligator's snout is kind of rounded, like a U-shape. In addition, crocodiles are usually much larger. The average alligator weighs about 500 pounds. Crocodiles can get up to 2,200 pounds. The crocodile is also a lot more aggressive than the alligator. All right, let's see what else June 17th is giving us. 1579, Sir Francis Drake claims the land he calls Nova Albion, which is modern-day California. He claimed it for England. 1839, in the Kingdom of Hawaii, Kamehameha III issues an edict of toleration, which gives Roman Catholics the freedom to worship in the Hawaiian Islands. The Hawaiian Catholic Church and the Cathedral of Our Lady of Peace are established as a result. 1876, the American Indian Wars, the Battle of Rosebud. 1,500 Sioux and Cheyenne, led by Crazy Horse, beat back General George Crook's forces at Rosebud Creek in Montana. 1898, the United States Navy Hospital Corps is established. 1930, President Herbert Hoover signs the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act into law. The Smoot-Hawley Act was created to protect U.S. farmers and other industries from foreign competitors. The Smoot-Hawley Act increased tariffs for foreign imports to the United States by about 20%. At least 25 other countries responded by increasing their own tariffs on American goods. 1933, the Union Station massacre in Kansas City, Missouri. 4 FBI agents and captured fugitive Frank Nash are gunned down by gangsters attempting to free Nash. The Union Station massacre took place on the morning of June 17, 1933. Convicted bank robber Frank Nash, this dude escaped from the U.S. penitentiary in Leavenworth, only to be recaptured in Arkansas. He was brought by train to Kansas City, and from there, federal and local law enforcement officers planned to drive him back to Leavenworth. As they moved Nash across the Union Station parking lot for a waiting car, 3 of Nash's allies drove up in another car. And that's when the gunfight broke out, which led to the death of Nash, a federal agent, 2 Kansas City, Missouri police officers, and a police chief from Oklahoma. 2 more federal agents were wounded in the clash. Seeing that Nash was dead and pretty much their attempt to free him had now failed, they sped off. This, of course, led to a major investigation, and the FBI and law enforcement basically came to Kansas City and started arresting gangsters. This led to the arrest and eventual execution of Adam Ricchetti, who was one of the gangsters, and the arrest of pretty much all of Kansas City's hometown crime bosses, and this was for harboring the people that had shot up the FBI agents. Now, there were 2 big names involved in this. It is rumored that the famous gangster Pretty Boy Floyd was one of the guys in the car that shot up the FBI agents, and the lead investigator in Kansas City for the FBI was a young J. Edgar Hoover. J. Edgar Hoover was appointed director of the Bureau of Investigation, and then that was like the early version of the FBI, and when the FBI was actually formed, he became the first director of the FBI. He served for 37 years in that position, from 1935 until his death in 1972. This I find remarkable about that whole thing. Not the shooting, but J. Edgar Hoover himself. These are the presidents that he served under. And this is how far back it goes. Calvin Coolidge, followed by Herbert Hoover, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Harry S. Truman, Dwight D. Eisenhower, John F. Kennedy, Lyndon B. Johnson. Richard Nixon is when he finally died and was out of office. 1971, President Richard Nixon, in a televised press conference called Drug Abuse, America's Public Enemy #1, starting the war on drugs, which, if you know anything about the war on drugs, was a complete failure. I forget the exact numbers. I watched this documentary on how much money was spent on the war on drugs and how little it did. I mean, yes, stopping drugs is a good thing and we should all focus on that, but the amount of money that was poured into this for next no results other than incarcerating a bunch of people who, as soon as they got out, continued to do drugs, it was just a fiasco in the end. 1987, with the death of the last individual of the species, the dusky seaside sparrow becomes extinct. It's always sad. 1992, a joint understanding agreement on arms reduction is signed by U.S. President George Bush and Russian President Boris Yeltsin. This would later be codified in START II. 2021, Juneteenth, National Independence Day, was signed into law by President Joe Biden to become the first federal holiday established since Martin Luther King Jr. Day in 1983. Movies released on June 17th, 1988, The Great Outdoors. Such a great movie. Dan Aykroyd, John Candy, Annette Bening. This was a great movie. It was written by John Hughes, who is famous for Pretty in Pink, The Breakfast Club, all those great movies from the 80s. The movie's original title was Big Country, but the same year the movie Big with Tom Hanks was coming out, so they changed it to The Great Outdoors so there wouldn't be any confusion. Born on June 17, 1980, Venus Williams. She's an American tennis star from Compton, California. She won the Australian Open and the French Open singles competition in 1998 and compiled a number of other tournament champions in doubles play alongside her sister Serena Williams. Her family moved out of Compton so the girls could train under Rick Mackey. I don't even know who that guy is, but apparently he's someone special. She is the first black woman to become the #1 tennis player in the world. She became one of the first of 3 female tennis players to reach the finals in all 4 Grand Slams, along with her sister Serena and Maria Sharapova. Died on June 17th, 1775, Joseph Warren. He's an American patriot who sent Paul Revere on his famous midnight ride. He died a hero's death on the battlefield. He received the news in 1775 that the British were set to march on Lexington and Concord, and he sent Paul Revere to alert fellow patriots. Now, there's a lot more that goes into the Paul Revere story, and I think we talked about it in the past, but Paul Revere didn't ride most of the ride. There were several other people involved in this. The person who rode the furthest on this thing to announce that the British were coming was actually Israel Bissell. And he didn't go through the streets yelling, "The British are coming, the British are coming." There were a lot of British soldiers in all the towns at the time and a lot of sympathetic Americans for the British, so he would have been captured and killed if he was yelling something like that through the streets in most cases. Anyway, Joseph Warren was commissioned as a major general in the Battle of Bunker Hill, but insisted on fighting as an ordinary private. He was born to a very respected farming family in Roxbury, Massachusetts. After his death, his children's education was paid for by Sam Adams, John Hancock, and other leaders of the American Revolution. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Now go out, have a productive day, and be nice to each other.